everyone, and welcome back to the Digital Nomad World Weekly Lecture. I'm Becky, and I'm going to be the host today, and I'm speaking with Naman Mehrotra. Did I say that right, Naman?
Yes. Yeah, that
Okay,
was
great. And you are the head of product at SafetyWing API, which is focused on building and scaling insurance benefits to freelancer and scale and global HR platforms. And so I want to talk with you today about the background of SafetyWing, where you work, and how it got started, the products that you offer, and why it's important to have travel insurance as a digital nomad. So welcome, Naman.
Thank you so much, Becky. I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you. I'm really excited to talk with you because I actually use SafetyWing as a product, and it's been great.
I'm glad to hear that. Really excited. I love when I meet someone while traveling and meet another SafetyWing customer. So if you
Yeah.
have any feedback, feel free to message me separately.
Okay, I will. But first, I want to hear a little bit more about you. So first, can you start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Kind of a quick background. I was originally born in India to two expat parents. My parents left the country when I was 1 year old, and I grew up moving countries every 2 to 3 years throughout most of my childhood, mostly based in Africa, but also traveled a bunch in Europe and parts of Asia. Before I decided to come to the US for my college education. In the US, I studied, I kind of was confused a little bit, so decided to do both engineering and business. And eventually, even in my jobs, I kind of jumped around different types of jobs. First started out in hardware engineering, then moved to consulting, found myself within product. I've kind of always had this vision where I wanted to work on kind of impactful problems and scale them up, which is why I studied both engineering and business. Then I eventually found my way to SafetyWing, and I've been here for about a year in our product team.
Great. And I also was hearing that you've been a nomad yourself for about a year. Is that right?
Yeah. So I used to be based in New York for about 4 years, and then a year ago, right about the time when I joined SafetyWing, I decided to go nomadic, which has been a really fun adventure for the last year.
Awesome. Did you join SafetyWing before you became a nomad? And was that why you became a nomad, because they offered you this remote position?
Yeah, so it was kind of I think because I joined SafetyWing, that prompted me to become a nomad. It's something I did my first solo travel straight out of university, and that was the first time I was introduced to a lot of nomads. It was a short trip. It was a couple-week trip in Thailand and Cambodia, and there I met a bunch of people who were nomading and traveling while working, and a lot of people who were just taking like an 8 month long break and traveling. And that's when I kind of said to myself that this would be really cool for me to do at some point in the future. At that point, I didn't really kind of understand how the world would change in the next few years because of COVID and the pandemic, and how like remote work has become a lot more, I guess, accepted across. And so when I joined SafetyWing, um, I kind of went back on that vision or dream that I had back in the day, where I was like, oh, wow, now all of the pieces are in place together for me to be able to actually do this and even work while traveling. So it just felt very, even though I was a little hesitant to leave because of missing my family and friends back in New York and the area, it just felt like something I had to try once. And I'm really glad I took that step.
Oh, that's amazing. Now, I'm curious too, how did you get started at SafetyWing? Because I know a lot of people are really interested in how to find a remote job like you did.
Yeah. So I met one of the co-founders, Sarah, who's our CTO, at a talk by the Disney CEO, Bob Iger. He was visiting New York to give a talk. And I met her about 3 years ago when SafetyWing was much smaller in 2019. And they were just starting out. And one of my close friends from university actually ended up joining SafetyWing, and I was already kind of active looking at a lot of remote job boards. I was trying to kind of explore different opportunities and even doing some soul searching and like what kind of roles I wanted to go into after my previous job. And then I eventually I found it very useful there's a few platforms like AngelList, Remote OK that are pretty good for remote jobs. But the most useful thing for me was to actually end up having all of these conversations, even to figure out what I wanted to do. And when I spoke to people at SafetyWing, and because I had a close friend who just joined about 3 months before I was interviewing, it just felt like a very strong culture fit. And given my background and my childhood, like moving countries every few years, I understood the problem that they were trying to solve. And so that really resonated with what I wanted to do in life.
Yeah, that's great. You're reminding me of when I actually went to a digital nomad conference and I met many members of the SafetyWing team. So I do think going to these talks, going to these conferences, you can find jobs that end up being remote, and it can really get you started on a path that you, like you said, you couldn't imagine when you first met those people in Thailand and Cambodia.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. What conference did you go to?
It was the Digital Nomads Summit in Playa del Carmen. It was in 2019.
Yeah,
That was sponsored by Johnny FD, or hosted by him at the time.
that's
So
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
we have a bunch of team members who kind of try to visit some of these conferences. I think we find a lot of use for like meeting our customers or even meeting other nomads and people in the space, because it's a really tight community, I think, out there. And uh, because we're still in the earlier stages of the trend, so it feels like there's a lot of camaraderie in the space.
no, great. All right, well, let's talk about SafetyWing itself and the products that you guys offer. So can you tell me what is SafetyWing? What are you and what are your main products?
Sure. Yeah. So I'll take a step back with like kind of describing SafetyWing. We're basically building a global social safety net for kind of what's more of a global world. And the way I describe a global social safety net is originally our founders, three founders come from Norway, and in certain countries like Norway or Sweden, there's um, these safety nets that they have. So whether it's like health insurance providing access to a retirement account that help their members feel secure and kind of financially and from a healthcare standpoint feel secure and safe. And SafetyWing kind of has a vision to build that for the global kind of global world, so that we're removing access to inequalities based on just where a person is born. And so if you look at the trend of what's happened is like with the internet, a lot of media has become much more global and it's not really fragmented by countries, but that's not really happened with the financial and healthcare infrastructure. And so we're hoping that with the internet over time, as remote work has grown and people are hiring more globally, that will eventually be kind of the next stage and like protecting people globally as well. And the way SafetyWing started, we currently have two products that are live. The first one was Nomad Insurance, which we launched pretty soon after we were founded. And that's a bit more of like a travel slash health insurance product for people traveling for long periods of time. And it will cover nomads outside of their home country for extended periods of time and provide them emergency healthcare. The second one that we launched, which is what currently I'm more focused on, is remote health, which we launched in January 2020, right before the pandemic hit. And that was meant to be a global health insurance product. So like you would have health insurance in your home country, this one works in 185 plus countries. So it kind of goes with you even while you're traveling. And the difference between this and the Nomad insurance is in this one, you can kind of visit a dentist or like just go for your routine doctor's appointment. And then we have a lot more kind of products slated to come up in the future that will fulfill our vision of building the social safety net.
Okay, great. Well, why would you recommend somebody to choose SafetyWing out of these other health insurance places that they can choose? Like I know, for example, World Nomads is one of them. Why SafetyWing?
Yeah, so I think first of all, the point is that insurance, I think getting insurance is very important, and we can get into the reasons for that. And any insurance that covers you properly, I think is beneficial. Why SafetyWing is, and I respect kind of every kind of company in the space because it is a difficult space to operate in. We pride ourselves a lot on customer service and customer care. And things can and sometimes do go wrong, but we really care about our customers on a personal level. And we're our team, like we're very careful in kind of hiring a customer care team and making sure they really care about the safety product, the mission, and our members. And that's something we receive a lot of positive feedback on from many of our members as well. So I'd say that's the number one thing for us, which is really kind of caring about our members and not just seeing this as like a product that wants to kind of increase their customer base.
I also feel like from looking at different websites that I've been on for insurance, when I got onto your website, I felt like you're really offering, like you're really focused on nomads and really thinking about what nomads are going to experience as they continue to work remotely, more than the other some other companies that seem much bigger. And so I like this, like you were saying, personal attention, and you're continuing to make more products, as you said. Why should people get this health insurance when they travel, or travel insurance in general, do you think?
Yeah, and I guess before I answer that, I think something that you mentioned just struck my mind is a really important point is that we ourselves, a lot of SafetyWing are nomads and remote workers. And so that helps us understand the problem at a deeper level because we're using our own product, we're beta testing our own products. And we kind of understand the user experience to that level. And then I think that's what kind of eventually led us to, if you look at most of the insurance industry, it's very kind of complicated. You need to get a quote for any insurance based on like your specific profile. And so this is something and that does not happen with most products that you buy today. The pricing and what you're getting is very upfront and transparent. And so that's something that was like important for us to fix in the process. So and we think we've gone to like a really good place with that, where our pricing and coverage is very transparent, and we try to make it as seamless as possible. I think coming back to your question on health insurance, why health insurance? I'm sure, as most nomads would have kind of experienced, when you're traveling to a new place, there's a lot of unknowns, and anything kind of unexpected could happen, and the risk of being somewhere where healthcare is expensive, or if you get injured, knock on wood, and you don't know what kinds of you kind of want someone to protect. I think you want health insurance to kind of protect your expenses and things that might be really high in certain countries, especially like best parts of Western Europe or in the US. And health insurance kind of just gives you that peace of mind that you have a backup to fall back on, or kind of a safety net to protect you in case something happens. It just removes that like extra piece of unknown. And when you're traveling, there's so many things that you just can't predict that can happen. So for me, it's almost it's like a given, and it's like a required kind of cost, and it's not really an add-on when I think about my travels.
Yeah, I don't know if I hope you don't have any stories of like travels where you needed to go to the hospital or anything. But I know for me, there's been a few instances where I definitely was so glad I had travel insurance, because as you said, you never know what's going to happen or when it could happen.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the whole thing with insurance is I think you hope that you don't need it, but when you do, you're really kind of glad that you have it, which is how the whole kind of model of insurance works.
And I actually love that you guys auto renew. This because I just used your product early this year, and I was somewhere for more than 2 months, and I was actually glad because I may have forgotten, and there even that one day when you're not covered, that could be the day that you really needed your insurance. So I'm glad you guys have made that easy.
Yeah, and I guess we offer both options, right? If you're just going on a short trip, you can buy just for a few days, and
Mhm.
that works out for certain people. But I think what happens a lot for nomads, and I use this myself, is when I'm traveling, I prefer for it to be auto renewed because our travel insurance covers pretty much like most of the world, I think no matter where you're traveling, it kind of goes with you and you're able to use it.
Okay, I do want to ask you, because I am from the US, and I'm sure any American watching this knows that we have a lot of special issues with healthcare, and it's very expensive where we come from. So I'm wondering how SafetyWing works with people from the US. Am I able to get covered in the US for those 2 weeks that I come back to my home country?
Yeah, so with the US, we actually the travel insurance or Nomad Insurance works in countries that are not, when you're kind of traveling outside of your home country. So if you're a US resident and you're traveling abroad, we're able to cover your expenses or any kind of medical expenses that might come up. For people based in the, or for people traveling to the US, and as you mentioned, healthcare in the US is more expensive. So we actually have a slight premium, which I think is about 85% higher than our kind of normal pricing for the rest of the world. So if you want US coverage while traveling to the US, we do offer that, but that's to kind of non-residents of the US that are traveling here, and unfortunately at a slight premium, which is just kind of reflecting the prices of healthcare in the United States.
Okay, but just to confirm, you're saying it because my home country, I'm a US citizen, I cannot be covered in the US.
Yeah, not under, because the travel insurance is meant to be more kind of when you're traveling outside of your resident country, and this is country of residence that I'm speaking about. So if you're based outside of the US, I think it would work differently in your particular scenario. The other thing I want to highlight is we also have a health insurance, a remote health product, which is more, I described that earlier, which is slightly different than our Nomad Insurance product. And that we're not able to offer to US residents because of the local requirements here. But if you were able to get on the remote health, your travel to the US is kind of automatically covered for 30 days of like emergency travel, if that makes sense.
Okay, even if you are a US citizen.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
As long as you're a resident of another country.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you for explaining that. I know.
But yeah, I mean, I will say, I think it's very important to us to cover, like one of the KPIs we measure ourselves by is like how much of the world do we have covered. And so that is kind of the state of things that we have today, but it's something that's really important for us to fix in the long term, which is how do we kind of provide this health, how can we be truly global? And that means covering big parts of the world like the US as well.
Okay, now I had a specific question for you. So I've met some nomads traveling that were actually secretly traveling because they were remote workers, but they were based in, for example, Germany. And because of the health insurance rules that they were from their company in Germany, they weren't actually allowed to work remotely outside of Germany because they weren't being covered by the health insurance. So I'd met a nomad who had just secretly left Germany and they didn't know that she'd left the country. She's still remote working, but technically she's not being covered anymore. Has SafetyWing ever stepped in or made some kind of deal with a company like that and allowed these workers to work remotely?
Yeah, so while we don't, I guess, advise on those particular scenarios on like working secretly in like a different country, we do have our remote health product is a product meant for employers and companies, whether it's like growing startups, to offer to all of their employees. So they're covered globally while traveling. So even if it's a proper health insurance that works as like the health insurance in your resident country. But if say today I'm working from Portugal and tomorrow I'm in Germany, and even traveling for kind of certain work related purposes, the SafetyWing remote health plan will cover you cover kind of any expenses in Germany. And these are not just travel related expenses, but any kind of doctor visits or dental or things that are kind of more routine parts of your healthcare. So we do offer a global healthcare plan to employers so that they can provide more flexibility and freedom to their employees. I'm not sure if that answers your question, Becky.
I think, yeah, I think it does. When I speak to this person again, I will say, hey, next time, don't secretly leave, but maybe she can suggest SafetyWing to her company, maybe just for her. But I do think this is an issue that as this industry of remote work is growing and becoming the norm, employers are going to have to deal with. They're going to have to be more aware of their options and hopefully be more flexible.
Yeah, and it's a pretty substantial change, right? Because most employers are used to having entities in like a few countries and operating and figuring out benefits that are local to those countries. But what we're starting to see now is that people are opening up. Like if I'm a startup founder, I want to be able to access the global talent pool and hire people globally. But then figuring out benefits in every single country that I hire in is very, very difficult. And so having a more international plan where I don't really have to think about it makes for it's not only beneficial to the employer where you're not having to figure out the local pieces in every single country, but it's also beneficial to the employee because now that employee can travel and move countries and still be covered by health insurance.
Okay, and this is all, as you said, remote health. So if I'm a startup founder, I can purchase like 10 policies, let's say, for my 10 employees.
Yeah, it would be a group policy for your startup that can cover all of your employees.
Okay, and also, I think generally this is how it works across many different health insurance companies, but would I go to a doctor and pay the costs up front? And then is SafetyWing going to reimburse me? Is that how it works under both of the products?
We actually offer both. We offer direct billing and claims. So how that works is, I think the one trick with the international health insurance is that most local insurances, especially in the US, will have like a in-network and out-of-network type of policy, where if you go in-network, a lot of your healthcare's costs are covered directly between the insurance companies and your doctor or the hospital. With the international one, you can imagine like we don't have a concept of a network per se, where you can go to any public or private healthcare institution or doctor. And below, so above a certain amount for more expensive charges, like $250 or above, we offer the ability to set up direct billing. So if you know in advance that you're going to a particular kind of checkup that will be expensive or going through a procedure that will be expensive, you can let us know in advance and we will set up that direct billing with them. But most of our users use our claims process, which is they pay directly from kind of their own accounts and then they'll file a claim. And then within a few weeks time, we'll reimburse them on those claims.
Okay, yeah, that's what the type that I was familiar with, but it's great to know that there's another option. How long does it normally take for you to set up the direct billing? Like how much time should I give SafetyWing before I go and make the clinic visit?
Yeah, we typically ask for 72 hours because obviously on our end, we want to do as much as possible to enable that. But what happens is on the back end is we have to set up some sort of a procedure and make sure that the provider, or in this case, the doctor, is okay with accepting direct billing and recognizes our insurance company as well. And so there's a lot of kind of back end work that needs to go on, which is why we need that 72 hours in advance. For emergencies, we have a different process where you can kind of let us know within 72 hours of the emergency happening as well. And, or sorry, it might be 24 hours within if an emergency happens. And that can be after the fact, after after the emergency has happened. So we have enough time to process the direct billing as well. But then again, I think most likely you will be using the claims process that I spoke about. But this option is available and we make it available in case there are any kind of larger expenses that our customers cannot necessarily afford out of pocket.
Oh, I'm so glad that you have this flexibility. I've actually never been lucky in my travel insurance past with being able to set up something like that. So that's really good to know.
Yeah.
And you were mentioning, so I do want to ask you a question from the audience. How does SafetyWing plan for when something unexpected occurs? For example, the war in Ukraine.
Yeah, those are kind of, it's very unfortunate that what's happening down in Ukraine, and we actually internally, when that happened, we kind of discussed that as a company. We have weekly company meetings, and that became kind of the only topic of discussion for that meeting, where we came out of that trying to come up with ideas of how we can help any of our, because we do have members in Ukraine and surrounding areas that will be affected. And so SafetyWing came, we built almost like a task force of a few people who really wanted to help out and thought that they could contribute there. And so some of the things that we did was we had like a kind of special page up for Ukraine to tell all of our users different ways that they can help and donate to the right causes, that organizations that were helping out with Ukraine, also providing remote kind of jobs, and how like people in Ukraine can access remote jobs. We also had a bunch of resources for our members in Ukraine that were kind of directly contacted from our admin teams to help them, to see how we can help them in this scenario. Unfortunately, these kinds of scenarios are very difficult to predict, but I think it really comes down to like coming together and really acting very quickly and coming up with ideas internally. And then also, I think accepting new ideas from our community, because that makes us much stronger than just what we can come up internally. So yeah, the situation in Ukraine is quite unfortunate, and I really hope things improve soon.
Yeah, me too. But I'm really glad to hear that you guys have these regular meetings and you're in touch with your community, and to the extent that you are, so you can really take quick action. And I know that you guys also covered COVID as well on your insurance, which a lot of companies did not do. So that's really great.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Another question for you. Are there any new features or interesting projects that SafetyWing is working on?
Yeah, so we, as I mentioned, on kind of a grander scale, our goal is to build this social safety net out, and we're really not done with our product vision until that social safety net and social safety net is complete. And there's a lot of elements to that social safety net. And so the next couple products that we have slated to launch this year are one, a global retirement savings account, that
Yes.
which I think a lot of people struggle with, especially nomads who are traveling across countries, because of how fragmented and country specific the system can be. And the second one is access to remote access to doctors, so like via online mobile apps or kind of web apps. And we're hoping that both of these will launch sometime this year. And we have a lot of other really fun and exciting problems that we're trying to solve internally. We actually have like an internal incubation team that works on essentially new ideas, new problems that we know we need to solve to get there, and tries to iterate very quickly to figure out how we can solve that problem. And then once a product comes out of the incubation team, we eventually kind of build it out into a much more robust offering before we offer it to our users.
Wow, I'm so excited about both of those things. And quick question about the remote access to doctors. So would you then be able to also easily get medicine as soon as you had that remote consultation in the country where you were in?
Yeah, so I think that's one of the use cases and the vision for it. I won't comment too much on it because we're still testing the
Yeah.
product. But I think that is one of the use cases which prompted us to look into that product in the first place.
Yeah, I love how you guys are thinking of all these problems that we all face traveling. That would be a dream because it's so complicated to first see the
Yeah,
doctor. And I'm looking forward to hearing about these updates.
yeah, thanks, Becky. And as I said, a lot of these products are products that I kind of wish I'm able to use even in my life.
Yes, I'm sure all the listeners are probably agreeing as well. Well, Naman, thank you so much for talking with us today. And listeners, for those of you here with us, if you want to find out more about SafetyWing, you can go to safetywing.com or check out their Instagram, which is actually at Nomad Cities. And I hope you guys can join me again next week at 5 p.m. UK time, where I'm going to be speaking with Surya Sanchez about how you can use your hobbies to connect with other nomads around the world. So thank you so much, Naman.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Becky. This was, I really enjoyed speaking to you and the
Yeah,
community.
I am very confident with SafetyWing now. I know I'm going to be using you guys again.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate that.
you.